So I know some of you might be sitting there and thinking, well, don't you talk about money and business? I do. And that's what this podcast is about, as we say in our intro, which you're going to hear in just a moment. But today I have a very special guest. Jenn is coming on the show because I wanted you to hear from an expert to talk about why we, especially as women, need to start paying attention to our health and how we are treating our bodies and how changing that to something a little bit better can drastically change everything in your life, from your family to your business to your success to how you feel about yourself. We're going to dive into all of this right now. All right. Hello, Foxy listeners. Welcome to the show today. I'm really excited for our guest, not only because she's a podcaster herself. So you always know when you get somebody else who knows how to talk that it's going to be a good conversation, but also she's the expert that I have been looking for and you guys have been asking for. So I'm not going to give it all away because I want you guys to tune in, but I do want to thank Jenn for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So I've deep dived you a little bit and kind of been stalking you, as you're supposed to. But for those listeners who are can you give us a little bit of background on you?
Absolutely. So my background is business and marketing. My current life as an entrepreneur is running multiple businesses, mostly in the wellness space. Although I have a couple ventures not in the wellness space because this is what we do as entrepreneurs, right? But I came to all the wellness stuff through my own saga. I call it a saga because I feel like the word journey doesn't do it justice.
Yeah.
There was drama and highs and lows and what felt like eons of time,
Right.
But so I came to all this wellness stuff through my own saga of trying to figure out my health and my weight and over time, my energy and all of the things. There were times where I just felt like I would breathe and gain weight, or why does everything feel so difficult, And at the same time that I was sort of on that path, I was also looking for something to do outside of my full-time job with the intention of either making extra money and investing it so that I could retire early.
Right.
Or something where I could work for myself because I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I could not or would not work for somebody else for the rest of my life.
Right.
And then those two worlds collided for me when I learned about the curriculum that I've since based my health coaching practice on. And at first, when I learned of it, I was like, no, that's okay. I've got my thing, right? Like we've been there where we think we already know all the things there are to know.
I've been mismanaging my health for a lot of years, so
Correct.
I'm good.
There's no way you know something I don't, right? But I learned about this curriculum. I worked with a coach, completely changed my life. Like the only thing that allowed me to say I'd kicked my food issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, it was like, well, everybody deserves this. I felt like it was the nutrition education we're all supposed to know, but nobody ever taught us.
Right.
And then I was sort of like, well, how did all of the things that we did learn come to be? Like, where did all of that come from? And I was so passionate about it. I was this insatiable student. And I was like, okay, this is my thing. This is what I'm going to do outside of my full-time job to eventually work for myself. So I built my practice on the side for 12 years, like way longer than I ever thought it would be. Left my full-time job July of 2019 after 12 years almost. Launched my podcast, Salad with a Side of Fries, in August of 2019. Fast forward, October 2025, published my debut book called Uncomplicating Wellness. And now I get to sit here and talk to you.
Well, I love it because I think it's one, your story gives a realistic view, right? Because like I find like too often people will be like, I'm going to open a business and then like, I'm going to be like super successful in the following year. And like usually my first question, like when clients come to me for that, I'm like, great. And how many investors do you have backing you? Because that's really the only way you're going to get there. But okay. Like,
Right.
everything is doable, right? But I think also too is sort of the merge, and what I feel happens a lot with entrepreneurs, and what I hear a lot from our
Yes.
listeners is, it's so hard to try to handle everything, right? So we were talking a little bit before the show is that, I have a high population of women who listen to the show. And one of the things that they constantly struggle with is, okay, having their business persona, being a mom, taking care of the house, doing all of this other thing. And then what comes last is obviously, it is their health, which they know needs to be a priority. And like you were saying, they feel like they know all of the things, right? I should have less sugar. I should be drinking more water. I should be taking walks. I need to do my steps. All those things that they're like, yeah.
Right.
Now, in reality, we all know these things, but actually doing them is a hard thing because you're trying to sort of balance. How did you or even what tips do you have when people are like, I know it, but I'm also on that stereotypical hamster wheel of like, I'm really great for 2 weeks and then something happens. I get
Yes.
sick and then it all goes to shit. And then, because I think that's a struggle that people have. And I know I've experienced it quite a few times.
Right. So there's a lot of pieces here. I think one part for me, like, how did I juggle it? I don't know in the beginning. And then I ended up in adrenal fatigue. So, right, in that actual burnout.
Yeah, that
And
forced
so
restriction.
that's what tends to happen is we figure it out over time by necessity rather
Right.
than what we like to do. There's an incredible book called 6 Months to Six Figures. If you've never read it, I highly recommend. And one of the things he says in that book is that we learn from other people's mistakes to shorten our learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that in business. We don't always do that when it comes to our health, because there's also this expectation that we're supposed to know this,
Yeah.
that we're supposed to have it figured out. And that's not reality. So I think that's part of why it ends up pushed to the back. I think another piece it ends up pushed to the back because we are more likely to keep the commitments that we make to other people versus the commitments we make to ourselves,
Right.
especially as women, but people across the board. Because if it's a commitment we made to ourselves, nobody else knows but us.
Right.
The downside of that, or the consequence of that, is really that it starts to chip away at our confidence, in our belief in ourselves. And then that starts to show up in our business. Then that starts to show up in all the other places in our lives, how we are in relationships, how we are with kids, right? Like all of these other things. But we don't always connect those dots because we tend to think of everything as these separate silos.
Right.
Like I often use this idea of like a Venn diagram where we have 8 million circles in this Venn diagram. You know, maybe it's a full-time job and then a business, because I had a side hustle for a long time. Then there's kids and parents and friends and maybe a partner and then pets and then, maybe it's our activity and eating food. Like there's 8 million circles. And somewhere in the center where they all overlap is us, like an octopus with all these arms feeling like we're pulled in a million directions. And like, of course we can't figure it out. That is exhausting and overwhelming.
Yeah.
So the first piece is even to just mentally like squish all those circles together and recognize that it's all one circle and it's our life, and that the things that we do for our health efforts are all part of the same circle. It contributes to how we show up for our kids, our friends, our partners, how we show up for our business, the people who work for us. Because I don't like to speak for how I think other people might feel, but I feel pretty confident in saying this one. None of us show up as our best selves when we're hangry.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And how many times have we been told eat less, move more? Or we're just busy and we think, oh, I'll eat later, or I forgot to eat. And then next thing you know, we're snapping at somebody on the phone, or we're less than kind when somebody asks for something. And it's like, well, wait a minute, if I just ate something,
Yeah.
I'd be a better human. Right? So there's little things of recognizing that the stuff that we do for our health supports all of the other things in our lives instead of taking away from it.
And I think that's a hard thing. Like, I think people, and I know I did when I was like, I don't have enough time to, like sit in the morning and like journal or whatever. Like, right. You're supposed to like sit in silence for, 20 minutes and write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And like, I remember like rebelling against that so hard. I'm like, how about I write down everything that I'm angry about? Because maybe that would be the release I would need. Right. Because it doesn't take me any time to think of that stuff. But once I like really started just like sitting down and thinking like, what would I find beneficial myself, as opposed to trying to be like, oh, well, you're supposed to journal, you're supposed to meditate, you're supposed to do this. And I was like, I honestly just enjoy like sitting with my coffee, especially now I'm in Canada. So we're like heading into like the winter season, like when the snow falls and it's quiet in the house and I can just have peace and have a coffee. Like that's my morning ritual. And when I started to realize, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when I started to sort of go, okay, how can I take this concept, but make it actually work for me right now and then evolve it later? That maybe years from now, that might turn into writing 3 things that I'm grateful for. I don't think it ever will, but that was a hard thing.
Yeah. And I love your story because it's spot on. It's like, figure out the things that work for you. I often say, stop shutting the bed. Like, who says? And we're listening to whatever guru. And by the way, like, I might know some things, but like, I'm not your guru either. You are your own guru. Like, So if something doesn't work for you, if anything I say today completely doesn't work for you, throw it out. Take one thing that might and play with it, And so, like, I even had a visceral reaction when you talked about journaling. Like, it's the thing it doesn't resonate with me. It's not a thing for me. But what I do have is a notebook on my nightstand where I write 5 things I'm grateful for that day before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes 7 seconds and sometimes it takes a minute, but it just shifts what I'm thinking about as I go to sleep. And it's actually no extra time in my day, but it's a little thing that I can start to do. And so the other piece about what you shared is finding something. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be everything. It's finding something, and the something that fits your life and your routine the way it is right now. Because, you asked about, tips or things that we can do, or why we can start for 2 weeks and then we're like, the F-its, right? This applies in both our health and our businesses. And that is our health outcomes, our energy, our revenue, right? Our quote unquote success is a function of what we do most of the time. Our objective for everything, our health outcomes, come from the seemingly small things that we do every single day, most of the time without even thinking about it. And what often happens is, and I did this for years in my business too, we go all out. We go hardcore. We go, I am a 100% kind of person, right? Where if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do it 100%. Well, here's the challenge with 100%. It's really difficult to maintain.
Yeah.
We also plan that 100% for this textbook perfect day that never exists, maybe once or twice a year, if that, right? And then maybe we can do it for a couple weeks, then we burn out, we do nothing. And we're in that black, white, on, off, good, bad, all or nothing, which doesn't actually move us forward in our health or our businesses. Right? It's not like you can say, oh, I made one sales call last week, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like we can say, oh, I don't need to move my body. I went to recess once in second grade.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I got up the rope in gym.
Yeah, I never did. So
I never did
kudos
either.
to you. Okay. But right, like we say it that way and we go, oh yeah, that does sound silly. But then we set up that expectation for ourselves when it comes to our health efforts. So I talk about this as this idea of like consistency versus intensity. So consistency and intensity are inversely related. The more intense something is, the harder it is to be consistent.
Right.
The less intense, the easier it is to be consistent. Well, if we know that consistency gets us to where we want to be, what if the objective wasn't 20 sales calls a day, where we do it once and then the next day go, I don't even know who I'm calling, so we don't do it, right?
Mom?
Right? Totally. What if it was 2 a day? And stop yourself when you go to do the third, because we met the objective for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can go on to the fire drill and all the other things. In our health, that's I walk for 10 minutes after I eat. That's I have a protein and fiber packed breakfast before my coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden, we have energy that powers us through. It didn't actually take a ton of time and effort. And we have bandwidth left for all the other things that are also important and priorities. And so consider if what you're expecting of yourself is something wildly intense. And let's just scale that back. Like make your plan for the most chaotic, hectic, stressful day, rather than making the plan for the perfect textbook day. And then on the days where we don't have a fire drill, where we maybe do have an extra hour, that's when we go, I'm going to add this in today because I can.
Mm-hmm.
But that becomes the above and beyond, rather than feeling like not hitting everything on the list means that we have completely failed and we might as well have not done anything.
Right. And then it becomes that discourage. And I think this is true. I mean, I've done this for a while where I have like a top 3 and I sit down, the night before and go, okay, here's, what do I really need to accomplish? Do I have a deadline for something, or what is something that's just been on my mind? And once I do those 3 things, like I will get up and I'll do like a little dance, I celebrate or whatever, because I'm like, I'm done for the day. Like I could leave for the day today because I finished everything. And when I realized that was like really beneficial, because I was feeling like I can do 3 things and I'm realistic with them. Like, I mean, sometimes I put stuff on that I'd be like, I can't do that in a day. Right. I've perfected that over. But when I started carrying that over to other things, like you were saying, of thinking of my health and going like, why do I always think I need, to walk whatever 10,000, 15,000 steps in a day, where sometimes that just doesn't work because I do a lot of stuff sitting at a computer and that's just the way it is. And I thought, yeah, I want to, like you said, I want to just apply 5 minutes. I just do 5 minutes in the morning. I have to get up and I have to walk either outside or on the treadmill. And I started to find that I never have done 5 minutes. It's always been more, but like hitting that and it going off and being like, oh, I can stop. Like I'm done. But the being like, I'm going to keep going. Like, it was like, it was exciting because it was like you said, it was almost like that reward of like, okay, I did what I said I was going to do, but it was beneficial when on those days where I had a really bad cold or whatever, and I was like, I just got to do my 5 minutes and get off. I still felt like I was more motivated to keep, to not be like, I'm sick,
Yes.
I'm just going to take the day off, and I'm not going to do it. And then I fall back into that trap of like, you're like, well, I stopped that, 6 months
Right.
ago.
Right, exactly. You're like, remember when maybe? Right.
Find an old watch stuck somewhere. Oh, this used to count my steps, didn't it? Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And it's those little things, like going back to even what we were saying about building that belief in ourselves. Keeping the commitments we make to ourselves builds that belief, reminding ourselves of the very difficult things that we have done that are infinitely harder than standing up and walking around the room for 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Helps us remember that we're capable and we have the bandwidth and anything we do is worth it. Because the other piece is that, well, if it's not long enough, hard enough, sweaty enough, intense enough, then it doesn't count.
Yeah.
And I call BS on that.
Well, and I think this is like such a good thing because I think a lot of time people think, I'm going to work, like you said, I'm going to have that intensity. I'm going to put that, absolute 100% in. And then later I'll figure out, the health and all of that other stuff. And it's like sort of reversing that in your head and realizing to enjoy all of these things that you're wanting to reap. It would sure nice to be healthy, to be able to do that, or to even have energy to keep up with it, where you're not like, yeah, now I'm down for 3 months because I've completely burnt out and now my body is just like, you don't want to rest, fine. Like,
right.
system
I talk to
shut
entrepreneurs. Down. Exactly. I talk to entrepreneurs and solopreneurs a lot. And when we recognize that you are your business, even if you have people who work for you, a lot of times you are the business. There are things that will not happen if you are not there. And so when we're in that, frankly, if we're down, the business is closed.
Mm-hmm.
The business growth might be closed, right? There's something that's not happening if we don't have the energy to show up. And I think when we can put it on that plane or that scale to recognize that this is part of how we take care of our business, that taking care of ourselves is taking care of our kids and is taking care of our companies, then it ends up in that plate of priorities in a different way.
What are some of the ways, like, because I think that mind shift is like such, a hard thing for people. Are there things that you found that really worked for you? Because I think sometimes we're like, okay, we've got it. Like, I'm looking right now and beside my screen, I have like sticky notes of stuff that like I want to remember. Like, one is, everything happens for an opportunity. Another one is like, I'm always enough. There'll always be somebody who cannot see my worth, but it'll never be me. Like, right. I have all of those. I even have one that says, go eat an apple now and then.
Yeah.
Now and then I'm like, okay, I need to get up and I need to remember to eat because that's important, right? Yes. I gain weight when I don't, and that kind of stuff. But are there things like, because I think sometimes we kind of get in that, where we've got these things and we've sort of set these reminders, but that negative side, or there's always that sort of yin to the yang. Were there things that really helped you to kind of overwrite that voice in our head that's like, yeah, but
so many things are like popping to my mind. I want to come back to that yeah but voice and start with this idea that so often we think the mindset is what comes first. We're waiting for that motivation, like lightning is going to strike and we're going to want to do the things.
Right.
And I believe that's what I call it, the myth of motivation. I think we have been sold a bunch of nonsense about motivation, and primarily that we think it comes first.
Okay.
And the truth is, motivation comes after. what ends up looking like motivation starts as discipline, starts as a commitment. And one thing I know is that business owners and entrepreneurs are incredibly disciplined people. It's not a lack of willpower. It's not a lack of, right? It's that we dedicate and use that energy elsewhere. So if we can recognize that this too requires a bit of discipline before we want to do the thing. So what ends up happening is, I love starting the day with a protein and fiber packed breakfast before our coffee. Okay. We can, if you want to, we can get into why that's so important, but we start our day that way. We just do it. We stop thinking about it. We stop making it a big deal. We maybe have 3 different things that we rotate between to just get it done and move on. And we decide that it's not a mountain. It's going to be a molehill because we've got bigger fish to fry. I don't know. All of the analogies are just sort of coming out, but go with me.
I love it. I love it.
So, I don't know. Apparently it's like all the animals. So we just do it. And then over time we go, wait a minute. I don't have that afternoon slump anymore. I have energy all day. I'm tired at an appropriate time in the evening. I'm way more productive all day. And then because we've experienced the benefits, then we have that motivation.
Right. Of wanting to say, I want to stay like this. I'm not giving it
exactly.
Kind of that thing. Like I always think of when you were saying that, it reminded me of like, anytime someone's like, I don't know, maybe I should like just give this up. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You could like go get a corporate job. And then they were like, no. And I'm like, it's so funny how that is just like the motivator of like, I will never work for somebody else. Like, and you're like, but you wanted to give up. And they're like, I'm never giving up. It's the same thing with this, that you can, if you can, I love that you put it that way, because if you can push past that, then it becomes, now I know how this feels and I know the benefits of this. And now I'm not willing to give up those benefits, just like we do in our business. The benefit of being an entrepreneur far outweighs going back to working for someone else.
And that's biochemical. So the literal connection between the gut and the brain is called the vagus nerve. Geek out with me for a second on this, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. The literal connection between the gut and the brain is the vagus nerve. Think of it like a 5-lane highway. 3 of those lanes are going gut to brain. 2 lanes are going brain to gut. So I don't care what your mindset is, you will never outthink the biochemistry of what we are putting in our bodies that is sending the signals gut to brain. We're just not. So if we start with the biochemistry, the thinking part follows and gets easier. And then it becomes that loop. But we're never going to outthink the insufficient or inappropriate fuel we feed ourselves and then feel frustrated when we aren't energized, when we're cranky, when we're doing, X, Y, or Z. So that's one piece of this, or a couple pieces of this. And then the yeah, but thing. I totally geek out on all the science side. And when it comes to affirmations, when it comes to the conversations we have with ourselves, visualization, all of those things, there's nuance to all of it that are the difference makers in it actually working. And so the idea of mantras or, things that we say, that self-talk, is really incredible because our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between truism or falsehood. It believes whatever we tell it. The challenge is, in order for something to get to the subconscious, it has to pass through the conscious. So if we tell ourselves something, but our conscious mind goes, yeah, but it's never going to get to the subconscious to program it. And what does get through is the yeah, but part.
Right.
So instead of saying, I'm a billionaire, and then your brain goes, did you tell your bank account? Right? Like, right,
No, you
it's right. Guess what? No, ma'am. So, so instead of saying this thing that we want to be true one day, but no is not true now, we have to tweak it. I'm on my way to becoming a billionaire. And then our brain goes, hell yeah, I am. Right? We can sit there and say, I make a healthful choice every day. I make a healthful choice every day. Our conscious brain can go with that, especially as we're on our way to identifying as a healthy person or as somebody who takes care of themselves, as somebody who puts themselves on their to-do list or their priority list. Because it's okay if we're not quite there. And to get there, we need the phrase that we believe. So scale it back. Not to scale back the goal, but scale back the way we talk about it in a way that we can get on board with it. Does that make sense?
It does, I think, because I think we already have that capacity to do it as an entrepreneur because that's how we started, right? Like they're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna open the doors to this. I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna say that this is who I am. And, so I think we do have that capacity, because that's just built into us, right? Of those things, like, this is my goal. Today I'm gonna do this. And this is how I'm going to kind of get there, and I think it's just, moving that over. And I think that makes a lot of sense of, you're not saying that you're not going to be there. You're just tweaking the words a little bit to make it so that your brain isn't like, that Southern lady going, no, you ain't.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And just recognizing like we're always a work in progress. Unfortunately, there isn't a there. It's always right. And we know that in our businesses, it's always evolving. And this is another piece of that. So I'm working on the fuel piece right now. I'm working on the movement piece right now. I'm working on the sleep piece right now. All of those things are incredibly valid and important. And so giving them that place and validity rather than the shoulds and if it's not this, then it's nothing. Then we start to go, oh, wait a minute. And we move in that direction.
Yeah. And I think it's so true. We don't, we recognize it in other people, but we don't necessarily recognize it in ourselves. Like, I just had gotten back from a trip, and at part of the trip, I was seeing my mom, and it was so funny because she was like, "Oh, I've got to go. I go to the gym on Wednesdays." And I was like, I've never known my mom to go to a gym ever. And so I was like, "Oh, that's exciting. Like, when did that happen?" And she's like, "A couple of months ago." And I was like, "Oh, like, what happened?" And she's like, "Well, a friend of mine fell and she couldn't get herself up. And that really scared me because I realized I didn't have a lot of strength in my arms." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I think she'd been going for like about 3 months, but she's like lifting 90 pounds now. And I was like, "You're like a powerhouse. Oh my gosh." And she was like, "I just decided that I didn't want to be like that." And it was like such a good reminder for me that I was like, yeah, sometimes I forget we can just decide stuff. Like, that she was just like,
Exactly.
I just don't want to be that person. So I just decided to like not be that person anymore. And it was funny because she was like, "You told me that. You told me if I didn't like who I was to just be something else." And I was like, "Oh, I'm so smart sometimes."
Right. Exactly.
To
And
other people.
right. And I love that she says it in that way of, I just decided, because that's what we were saying about like the discipline piece. It starts as a decision. It starts as the discipline of, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And recognizing that any piece of this is part of doing this. You know, when we do that 2 weeks and then nothing, or we think we aren't capable or we don't have the time or all the things, it's because we've made something up about what doing this has to look like.
Yeah.
You know, like the journaling or the gratitude or whatever it is. Like, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. That's all we need. And like, you know, like one of my biggest pet peeves is, especially in the personal development space, like all of the things that are about, you know, they make us feel like we've already failed the day if we haven't run a marathon before 5 a.m.
I love it when they say that. I'm like, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. There's nothing that needs me in that moment.
Okay, also,
God bless you for that. But no,
I don't like running.
no.
I have no desire to run a marathon.
Yeah.
So, no thanks.
Yeah. I'm with you on that too. So
But
it's like,
cool for
run. I'm like,
you. Right.
I'd
So,
rather take a bullet. Well, what if somebody
right.
had a gun to your head? I'm like, I would literally look at that person and go, then shoot me.
I
I am not
I
running.
I would make an attempt to run for my life. Let's be clear. I would try, but I think I have other skills that are more effective, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I would be like that one that's just like rolling and going, serpentine. Does this work?
right.
As I go through.
Right.
But I think that's just it. I think that's such a good message, is that we get so stuck in like what we see, or somebody who, you know, has been doing this for like a ton of years, or we think that we're going to like take our lifestyle, what it is right now, and all of a sudden drastically change it, you know, to something else, and have all of these disciplines, which are impossible to all fulfill at once, especially when they don't fit with you. So I love your idea of like just picking one thing that you can do that is going to be something that's going to be easy and consistent, but still make you feel like, oh my God, I moved the needle. All right. Like another day I did this,
Exactly.
you know, but
Exactly.
not going, you know, I'm going to lose, you know, whatever, you know, if it's like a weight thing of going, I'm going to lose 250 pounds. And you're like, start with one. Let's go to,
Right.
let's go, you know,
Right. And thinking about your life and your situation and your circumstances. So even back to the morning routine piece, what's your best on-ramp for the day?
yeah.
What helps you show up that PS, that's going to be different than mine.
Yeah.
And that's what's amazing about it, is that we aren't all exactly the same.
Yeah.
There might be things that we can learn from each other and play with. But I always say, you know, even with my clients, the stuff we talk about is guidelines, not gospel.
Love that.
Figure it out. We're going to play and experiment. And if it doesn't work, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Or what about it didn't work? Let's tweak it and experiment with a different piece of it, or a different way, or a different time. It's not a right or wrong. It becomes a right or left. And we can always choose again.
I love that. I think that's such a good message. I really like that statement. It's not right or wrong, it's right or left.
I totally stole that from one of my colleagues and business partners in one of my non-wellness businesses, but it works and it fits so many things.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, you know, and this is one of the reasons, because I think, you know, that I wanted to have you on the show, is because, you know, even in my own journey of ups and downs of it, you know, and like I said, I just went to go see my mom, and it's so funny because every time my mom's very healthy, she loves to cook. It's not my forte, but every time I come back from her house, like I am so motivated to do stuff because I just follow through, right? My mom's 73 and she's like if I could be, no, I will be like her when I am her age, because she's so active, and I'm like, I got to sit down for a second. Gotta give me a break. Like,
I love it.
She's one of those 5 a.m. risers, but she loves it, right? And then I saunter out of bed and she's like, milked a cow and churned butter and built a shanty outside. And I'm like, I peed. We're not the same, and that's okay, right? But You know,
Exactly.
it's realizing, you know, and I love that you say it's also realizing that it has to fit who you are, who you want to be, and what fits within your schedule. And that can change as you go through. So if you start with something and you're like, well, that's really good, I would like more time in the morning. Or like you said, I want to do this in the evening because the morning thing, you know, maybe that's something that you just tweak and go, I like this idea, but I would like to do it at this time. You have capacity to do that. Just make the decision to do it differently.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I would be remiss because I know I'm going to get this message because I know some of my listeners are going to be like, okay, the breakfast thing, what is it?
Okay.
Because I could hear those messages already coming in of like, you didn't ask her what it was that I need that. I need that recipe. So,
Okay. We'll talk about what the things are, but the biggest piece, especially for women, is no caffeine before food. We can have it with our food or after, but not before. Cortisol gets a bad rap, right? Like we know it as the stress hormone. We need it. It is our get up and go. It is our get out of bed hormone. We want cortisol to be higher, like rising in the morning. That's what wakes us up, kind of peak, and then come back down later in the day. And then we get tired at night with lower cortisol. So there's this curve of how we want it to be in a 24-hour period. Well, cortisol, when it's naturally high in the morning or higher or rising, and then we add caffeine on top of that, it essentially stresses. Sorry for using a word to define a word, but
that's okay.
It taxes our stress pathways. It taxes our adrenals that help with managing all that cortisol. So if you are someone who you love your coffee, I don't begrudge you your coffee or your caffeine or whatever. If you're someone who ends up at 3:00 saying, I need something, I need a pick me up, I need something sweet, I need a cup of coffee, I need something at 3:00. And or it is 6 or 7 and you feel like you could fall asleep for the night, then at 11 or midnight, you are wide awake, ready to take on your entire to-do list. Those are all telltale signs that we're in some stage of adrenal fatigue. So one of the best things that we can do for our energy throughout the day and cravings and is recognizing how we start the day. So if we can start the day with a protein and fiber packed breakfast, we'll talk about that in a second, and not have our caffeine on an empty stomach, we can help manage some of that. And most people see a difference. The other thing that I like to remind everybody is that what we mentally perceive as stress is very different than what our biology and our body's chemistry experiences as stress. Same thing with sleep, right? What we think is quality sleep versus what our body experiences as quality sleep are not exactly the same thing all the time. So sometimes we have to give it what it needs before it's screaming at us. And so it's how we start our day. If you find sugar cravings, late night eating, sugar cravings are often connected to undereating protein. Late night eating is often directly connected to undereating in the first half of the day and trying to work at night, sitting in front of our screens, like the computer screen, right? All these things. So like a lot of the things that we notice and we experience have a biochemical reason far beyond whatever we think it is, which is typically I suck or I have no
Right.
willpower. right? Like, no, it is biochemical. And so when we start to approach it that way, these decisions become a little more intellectual and a lot less emotional. And then we can experience what it's like to be like, oh my goodness, wait, I don't have to eat another meal at 11. So, protein and fiber in the morning. Well, first of all, I always say to everybody, if you've ever listened to my podcast or you start to listen, it's called Salad with a Side of Fries. And one of the things I say all the time is protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal.
I love that.
Protein and fiber at every meal makes energy no big deal, makes living our lives no big deal. But protein and fiber every time we eat. So the only difference between a meal and a snack is how much we have at a time, and then therefore how long till we need to fuel again. Protein is clean, lean protein. I don't care what it is. Eat what you like. Don't eat what you don't like. Clean, lean protein. Maybe that's animal, maybe that's plant. All the things work. Clean, lean protein. Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. And people are like, what now? Right? So fiber, vegetables, and fruit are carbohydrates. We need those. They also come with a lot of other vitamins and minerals and micronutrients that our systems need in order to function. So choosing those foods, pairing them together in that way, gives us sustained energy, mental clarity, focus, all of the things that we need to show up as a better version of ourselves. So the other thing we need a couple times a day is quality fat. And eventually one day I'll figure out how to get the fat part into the cute sentence. But so quality fat a couple times a day, like 2 to 4 times a day, is olive oil, avocado, walnuts, almonds, salmon, sardines, anchovies. I know we don't really like those. But quality fat a couple times a day. P.S. A serving of avocado is half of the avocado. My ladies, eat the avocado. Like people are like, oh, it was great. I had a quarter of a sliver of a half an avocado. And I was like, yo, how much? Like just eat it. You're going to feel better. You're going to eliminate better, right? Like eat the avocado. So protein, fiber, quality fat at breakfast. Maybe that's a vegetable omelet with some avocado. Maybe that's a chia pudding, chia seeds, some almond milk or whatever kind of milk you want. Or I like to level it up and I make a protein shake and I use that as the liquid for the chia pudding.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then add some berries and some walnuts and, have at it. What do you enjoy? My favorite breakfast is a breakfast salad. And all of you are going, get out. This, just trust me, try it and tell me how you feel. Okay. So here's the breakfast salad. Any greens you have in your house, throw them in a bowl. Any vegetables you have in your house, chop them up, throw them in the bowl. Eggs. Egg whites, or leave the yolks runny. Cook the eggs however you want, leave the yolks runny. Put the eggs on top of the salad. The runny yolks make a creamy salad dressing. Add everything but the bagel seasoning on top. Maybe you like a cheesier flavor. Add some nutritional yeast for some extra protein. Maybe you want some vinegar or whatever to make more of a dressing. Maybe you add avocado. Maybe you add in some other kind of breakfast sausage that you like. Maybe you have some leftover potato that you put some in there and throw it in. I don't care. Mix all of the things up into the breakfast salad. The runny yolks, the everything bagel seasoning. It is the best breakfast that keeps me full, satisfied, and focused for so long. And the first time I tried it, I was like, this is wild. And the person who recommended it to me might be certifiable.
I love a breakfast salad. Like,
Love it.
to me, the typical like breakfast foods that are out there, like the yogurts and all that other stuff, never sat in my stomach well in the morning, like the dairy and stuff. And
Yeah.
I just remember like camping once and I was like, I don't really, you know what? I'm just going to eat the salad because that's really what I want. And then I was like, oh my God, that's so good in the morning. Like, that's just
Yes.
like fresh and fun. And like sometimes I add a little bit of fruit in the summer or whatever, but like, yeah, I love it. I think it's like
Yeah.
yeah. Once you can get your head around, like, stop thinking it has to be like like you said, the stereotypical, sort of things. And going to my
Yeah.
mom helps me with that because you cannot get away without having a vegetable on your plate when you're at my mom's because she was like, I'm too many last night. So you get like, an egg, a poached egg, and then you get like whatever steamed vegetable she had the night
I
before
love
that
it.
she grilled up. But it's so good, right? Like
Yeah.
now I'm like, why
Okay.
did I eat
So
the other way?
the one last piece to blow everybody's mind, a serving of protein at a meal for a biologically female body is 4 to 6 ounces. That is your whole hand. That is 4 eggs. A snack size amount of protein for everyone is 2 to 3 ounces. So that's the palm of your hand or a little bit less. Most people are dramatically under eating.
Mm-hmm.
We have a snack size amount of protein. We may or may not have any fiber. We probably don't have any fat because we were told fat's not great for us, right? Wrong. Eat the avocado. And then we're hungry a couple hours later, but we were told eat less. So we, like the petulant child, stick our fingers in our ear and go, la, 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 I can't hear you, body, right? Like I'm ignoring that you're telling me you're hungry. And then we're cranky and we're short tempered and we can't quite focus on the task. And like, for me, like one of my first signs of being hungry is that I can't quite really focus and I get annoyed about the text message that interrupts what I'm working on.
Mm.
They didn't know. They aren't necessarily expecting a response this second. But I know when I start to get annoyed about the text that came in, I'm like, I probably need to eat something soon.
I mean, not that it's a good example, but Snickers had those commercials, right? You're like,
Right.
you're getting a little like you need something, right? I know it doesn't need, do not make it a Snickers, but I'm just saying they had that
Right.
concept, right there. And I think that's so true. I mean, I remember, numerous times, like when I met with a nutritionist and like got the list of stuff, I was like, I cannot physically eat this much in a day. Like I remember thinking it like felt so insane. And I was never healthier and I never lost weight quicker and I never ate more, right? And it's like sort of relearning all of those things that we kind of
Exactly.
had somehow drilled into our head of like counting things. And I mean, I remember like years ago, the Nutrisystem, the
Oh man.
Weight Watchers, and
I
all
did
those horrible
every
things.
diet. Like I sort of joke between me and my family, like there isn't a diet that I haven't done, they haven't done, or we don't know somebody who's done it.
Yeah.
Like been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and it sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I remember my dad being on Nutrisystem and like getting really excited about that and the like fridge being full. And I remember like looking at the food and going, that doesn't look appetizing at all. At all. And I remember thinking, I don't know how he's going to stay on this because my mom was always a good cook, right? But always cooked, for the most part, would cook very
Yeah.
nutritious things. And, it was always just going, I think you should be like eating this stuff. But, anyways.
Yeah.
But I love that because I think that's, even just with those examples of just changing how you start your morning and, not doing that caffeine at first, can make such a huge change. And the one thing that we always, hear from entrepreneurs, and I've heard this in my 26 years, the common denominator is always, I wish I had more energy. And I wish I had more time. And the reason I don't have time is because I keep losing energy and I don't want to work, all through the night. And so I'm so glad to have you on the show with all of this stuff. And we're definitely going to link to your podcast because there's so many fantastic episodes there of just getting people to realize if you can start putting yourself first and you can start realizing that your health and well-being, like just even how you feel inside, is going to give you all of those things that you want to do, that energy, that vivaciousness, that, that purge within you to kind of move forward and do all of these things that you want to do, all comes right down to how we're, sort of feeling inside. That, if it's such a simple thing, but it's so hard for all of us to do.
Exactly. And I think just recognizing, simple isn't easy. And we can use some support to figure it out. You don't have to figure it out alone.
So you have so much stuff. We're going to link to all of it,
Yeah.
but you have a bullseye of change.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about this, because I think this goes towards the behavior change that we were talking about in this episode too.
Exactly. So the bullseye of change is my framework for how we think about and understand the process of behavior change, because we expect it to be flipping a switch. And that is, in fact, not at all how it works. So if we can even understand intellectually how it works, then we can start to use this tool to help us get from where we are to where we want to be. So the download walks you through the whole concept, some examples, and how to start to play with it yourself.
I love it. Well, we're going to have the links to that and to everywhere that people, can find you and connect with you to learn more, because you're everywhere, just about on every single platform, which is awesome, because you cannot say, oh, she's not where I like to hang out, because she is. So we're going to have that. Now, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot with this question, but if there was one area that you were like, you know what, this is something that I wish I would have done a lot sooner. You had talked before about, and I love that analogy, because I always say learn from others' mistakes because it's easier than making them yourself. What is one thing that you were like, you know what, this I would change if I had to do it over again?
It kind of depends on the phase that, where I'm at. I think, especially as I think about my wellness, right? So like my new book, Uncomplicating Wellness, is this tool that I wish I had, but I think I wish I had been willing to listen more in the very beginning and not try to figure it out on my own, because the figuring it out on my own looked like following every fad diet and every headline and feeling like something was wrong with me.
I love
and there was nothing wrong with me.
And there's nothing wrong with our listeners either, which I think is like a great message. And I think it's true, right? We jump on bandwagons and then we're like, how the hell did I get here? Like this is not where I want to be. So I'm glad you took that, and I'm glad you wrote the resource, which we're going to have links for that too. Jenn, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I think there's like so much information, and stuff. And I will write a recipe without all of the like stuff for you people, because I know, and Becky is one of my avid listeners that responds to every single thing. I did it for you, Becky. She's the one who replies. She'll let me know how she thinks.
I love it. Hi, Becky.
But she is definitely one who'll be like, how did you ask about this? So I hope I have done her justice in this. All right, listeners. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please reach out. Let me know what it is that really stuck with you. If you have a morning routine that you absolutely love doing that works for you, let me know what that is, because I'm curious to see what it is that you're eating, what it is that you're drinking, what it is that you're writing, if you're doing meditations, what is it that you just love that is your, do or die hill. You're going to do this because that helps you in the morning. And then we're going to put a list out so everybody will have like this resource to kind of pick from. And also make sure that you head over to the links that we have for Jenn and let her know what it is that you took away, any questions that you have, and connect with her and her podcast and the resources and all that other stuff. Jenn, thanks for coming on the show. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Such a pleasure.
I absolutely love episodes like this. I love it when I get to talk to a guest who's engaging and knowledgeable. And I really hope that you took from this episode what I said at the beginning, that really starting to concentrate on ourselves and being selfish, which I don't think is a bad word. And I am one of those people that want to change that. It is so important to take care of your well-being, especially as an entrepreneur, because if we don't do that, what tends to happen, and what I've seen numerous times happen, is that we end up in that burnout. And like my guest today, Jenn, was saying, that adrenal fatigue where you just don't have a choice. Your body's like, you ain't doing this anymore. I'm going to knock you down. So I hope you take time to sit and just assess, what is it that's working for you right now? Are there things that you can change? Are you doing like what Jenn said in this episode? Are you having those sort of cravings? Are you having those grumpy times? Are you feeling the fatigue requiring that 3 p.m. pickup? Are you one of those people who's sitting on the couch at 6 o'clock thinking you could sleep for the rest of the night? We've all had times like these, but let's try to figure out small ways and things that we can change to make it even better. I know for myself, I'm going to continue to start really concentrating on what it is that I'm putting in my body first thing in the morning, because that's an area that I'm not as consistent as I would like to be, and really, really changing that mindset. So that is my goal, and you can feel more than happy to hold me to it. But I want to know, what is one thing that you're going to start changing in your day, something that you're going to tweak to help you start feeling better and doing something that's just for you? Let me know. Send me an email, send me a DM on any of our platforms, Smoke Signal. I accept them all. And I absolutely love hearing from you, because 2026 can be your best year yet. Remember, though, no matter what it is that you're doing, make sure you take time to have fun, because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?